Hi, welcome to our 1 o'clock live chat. My name is Melissa Evans. I'm the editor of the Long Beach Post, and I'm very excited today that we have Gregory Sanders, who is the lead pastor of the Rock Christian Fellowship. I wanted to have Pastor Sanders on because we're in the midst of Holy Week. We have Easter coming up on Sunday, and we've covered a lot of this pandemic here at the Post. We focused a lot of our coverage on businesses hurting, obviously the healthcare workers, the emergency personnel on the front lines, the independent contractors. The economic and healthcare aspects have been huge. But one thing, all these other places where people gather being affected, and there's no better time than Easter week to talk about how churches are coping and, places of worship where human contact and gathering is so important. So Pastor Sanders is also the president of the Long Beach Ministers Alliance. And I know it's kind of why don't you tell us what that is and just kind of what you guys have been doing within that organization to help each other.
Thank you so much, and welcome everyone. And thank you so much, Melissa, for the invitation and the Post. Thank you so much. But the Long Beach Ministers Alliance is a assembly of faith-based organizations, both parachurches and what we call traditional churches. And our goal is to how do we kind of incorporate faith into the daily lives of our community when it comes to health and wellness and social equality and justice and jobs and education, policing, legislation. Everything that's outside the walls of the church is the alliance. It's kind of the heart of the alliance. How do we, affect the community regardless of what our faith is, but still livelihood, lifestyle, and wellness matters. So it's not whether you belong to a church or not, it's whether you live in our city. And then how do we as a collective, with our membership and our influence and our resources, how do we impact the daily lives of those that live in Long Beach?
So what has this been like for you this past few weeks as a pastor?
I'm wearing a hat now because my head is matching my beard. I can't tell you how engaging it has been at multiple levels, psychologically, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, at every level. Circumstances like this affect us in multiple ways. And one of the things that I think I've embraced is the fact that I'm feeling more in a place of grieving. When it doesn't matter if it's a human or you lose a job or anytime something dies in our lives, it positions us in a place of grieving or mourning rather, or an area that we're just, we have to kind of calibrate ourselves and reprocess how we deal with that loss. So the loss of freedom, the loss of mobility, the loss of human, interaction, the loss of our church is huge. We probably over hug. We're like hug to the 100th power. And high fives, and just that's a form of our encouragement and our adoration for each other. So even that, to me, I'm mourning that. So in the real world, I'm kind of in a place of grieving, but I'm really excited about, obviously what with faith, what God is doing during this season.
So talk about that. What are some of the positive or maybe unexpected things that you've noticed that have come out of this?
Well, the unexpected things are when any human tragedy has a face to it that you recognize. Mm-hmm. And over this human tragedy, there's been many faces that are attached to it or affected by it that I recognize. And, in my mindset, I call it like the broken road theory. That you're traveling along and you've got a great pace and you're moving your family and your community or your church, or if you're a teacher, your school, your children that you teach as a nurse or as a doctor, as a police officer. It's kind of like we're in this broken road right now. And just really making sure that we navigate the broken road as carefully and precisely as we can. So for me, it's been those type of adjustments. It's not readjusting our GPS because our goal stays the same. It's that now making sure that there's a couple potholes and there's a breach in the road, that you still navigate it safely with everyone that you've been assigned to, or that you're responsible for.
And I know, I was just talking about this I've been trying to video conference with friends for my own mental health, just to kind of keep in touch with people outside of work. I love the people I work with, but, just to kind of keep relationships. And one thing that we were talking about last night is that I find myself actually reaching out to people more and thinking about some of the seniors in my life that are probably lonely a lot.
Yes.
And now it's brought them a little closer.
Yeah. There's a great saying that says, we suffer in isolation, but we heal in community. And thank God that this happened at a time where we have advanced technology.
Yeah.
And just because we can't gather doesn't mean we have to be separated. And so the philosophy is, yes, text people, check on your neighbors with a phone call or an email or a tweet, whatever mechanism and platform works best for you. It really should create a deeper engagement with humanity, much more than what I say we took it for granted. I'm going to see you tomorrow, or I'll see you next week. Well, this kind of reminds us that, well, maybe we won't. And so the value of our time and the value of our communications and our experiences become accelerated, and now they're priceless. Now I look back and go, man, I should have, maybe I should have gone by, or maybe I should have visited. But we always think we have tomorrow. And I believe this is God showing us that, tomorrow is really, really in His control. And so we have to trust that. But I love the fact that you're embracing that by connecting, reaching out even more.
Yeah. And before I forget, I do want to remind the people who are watching to type in your questions. We have people feeding them to me, and I'll try to keep an eye on that. So if you do have any questions for Pastor Sanders, let us know and we'll make sure we ask them. But along those lines, one of the things that I realized was how it's made me sort of reflect on some of the interpersonal things that happen in my life that I take for granted. I get together with a friend of mine every Sunday, and whenever I go to her house, I show up and she has flowers on the table. She's got tea set out. She's got little chocolate cut up. And we do this every Sunday, and she always presents these things so nicely. And it's made me think about that. Like, wow, she does this for me, and because I miss it. Yes. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Just made me grateful.
It really should increase the value we have for each other. It's no longer, kind of social inequalities and social injustices. Right now, we're all inconvenienced to a place that it should produce a greater, even deeper relational equity with each other. Like you said, you missed that chocolate. And I play dominoes. And so if anybody's on the line that plays dominoes, that was part of our culture. It's like the barbershop for African Americans. That's where we solve the world's problems, and we have political conversations and social conversations. Our dominoes was that for us as well. And I miss that so much. Even playing it electronically with each other, it still has the disconnect from our human interactions and the spontaneity of our laughter. So I'm with you 100% on that one.
So how are you delivering services, just from a practical standpoint?
Well, one thing that I do want to assure believers out there that are on the line is that the church has never lost confidence in its identity or our mission statement. We've never lost confidence in who the church is. And the church has always been able to adjust to new conditions. It's designed, kind of durable and formidable. And, the whole history of the church has always been one of flexibility. And whether it was moderate or whether it was extreme, it was always, can the church be flexible? Primarily because the church, it's not the building, and we're not a monument. We should be fluid. Every church, whether it's Catholic, Buddhist, Protestant, Christian, whatever we are, we still have a fluid kind of context to our existence. And it's always been the people. It's the people. It's rooted in resilience of the people. And so the church, I always say, is a living organism. And we're able to, kind of be modified and to a new use and to a new purpose. So for us, this new kind of design is all of us have gone to electronics. Most of
Okay.
us were using it as a augmentation to our Sunday service, where people who were out of the area, people who were sick, they couldn't make it. We would always use either Facebook Live or another
Yeah.
opportunity to make sure that we were accessible to people regardless of where they were in their personal lives at that moment. And so now what's happened is we've had to shift all of that to our electronic platforms. Many of us are
Okay.
using Zoom. I think a large part of us are using Zoom. A large part of our communities, rather, are using Zoom. There's a large population that are using their Facebook Live very, very well. And then there's others that are using a combination of YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Zoom. So we're really, using the platforms to our benefit at this time. But it has required, some additional adjustments. But because we're fluid, the church is designed to be resilient. It's really been, we've seen an increase in our community on Sunday mornings
Really?
at Bible. Yes, even on Wednesday nights, we've kind of seen an increase in our community and those who want to connect. And maybe a little bit of it is because of the tension in the atmosphere where people are a
Mhm.
little bit more concerned. And whenever that happens, it reminds us of the faith that we were rooted in. It's always been the church from the first century, even to Dr. King. It's always been the church that we could count on, and I think people want to count on their faith right now.
Yeah, and I bet it's I go sporadically to a Methodist church, Los Altos United Methodist,
Oh yeah,
and
great.
there's a lot of elderly people in that
Mhm.
church. Have your younger members been helping out with? I'm not sure of the demographics of your church, but
Yes, we have a really cool balance, not only of age but of ethnicity, and so across the board, it has been a partnership with each other. There was when we first started Zoom, there were people who were challenged with accessing it, and our people
mm,
just rallied. Different people would connect with them and make sure that they knew how to navigate this portal, and now we're finding that even our seniors. I use it as an example because whenever our young people say, "Hey, I had trouble getting in," and I'll use an example, say, "Well, ABC didn't have a problem getting in. One of our ladies, like Joan, they didn't have a problem." So I challenge them because even our seniors are finding it really, really easy to access it because
hmm
99% of us all have either cable TV, which
right.
requires some type of internet. And so most of our homes do have internet at least, but we found success
Okay,
in making sure that we mentor our seniors through these stages, and many of them have embraced it and they like it.
that's that's good. It is pretty easy,
It's,
You just click on a link and
well, there's a great biblical quote that says, "It's so easy that even a fool not error." So it is, but when it's new, it just takes a minute to
yeah,
not only get educated but become comfortable. And we have
yeah.
people on Sunday mornings who choose maybe not to use the video, but they just want to be present for the audio, and that works for us as well.
We do have a question
Okay.
from a viewer.
Okay.
How are your church members helping you during this time? Because
Oh
I
my,
know pastors and their families need their congregations as well.
I love that question, and I want to say thank you for that question because it should be a reminder for every listener and everyone that's in the audience right now. Please check on your pastor. And our church is small enough where we have this deep equity in each other. We're graceful enough to know we're okay. We're okay, but we know, like on a Sundays, couple of Sundays, if a person's missed a couple of Sundays,
Yeah.
we know to check on them. And during this season, I am so grateful for our community. I am just so blessed by the texts I receive.
Mm,
People will call and just pray for me just because, hey, I just wanted to call. Last night, one of our daughters, one of our church daughters just called and said, I just want to pray. I just want to encourage you. And so
mhm.
that level of encouragement has been so fortifying for me because I think that, and don't tell the world, but I think I deal with a little bit of like adult ADHD. Like when things go crazy, it's just like, oh my God, so many pieces to try to hold at one time. And that our community now helps me hold everyone else together as well, and
Yeah.
as well as myself. So I'm blessed that people check on me multiple times during the day. People have dropped off items for us. And
Oh, that's so sweet.
oh yeah, I mean, just what a blessing.
And you don't often think about your pastor and
Exactly.
their needs and their mental
Exactly.
well-being.
I think people think that as pastors, we are like bulletproof and we don't have problems and we don't have issues at home and our marriages are like perfect and our children are like so super obedient and our
Right.
grandchildren are well, but we actually are human and we need prayer as well. So thank you for asking that question. Whoever asked that question, that's vital during this season.
We have another question. Our new normal will be abnormal. So how will you have your services when we're allowed to come back? Will you have masks, gloves, six feet apart still? That's kind of a question that actually has implications for a lot of different things.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you think this will change going forward?
Yeah. I think what it's doing is creating best practices in us that were obvious that we should have been practicing. There are certain things that we should have been practicing. And I think, as we've said from day one, this situation is so fluid, we're going to follow the directions of those who are in position to guide us best. CDC, health department, doctors, all of that. And we know that, yes, we may not be able to do communion the way we traditionally would do communion. And that looked like where we would pass the bread and people would select their bread. They would pull, just take it out of a tray. We won't be able to do that anymore. We'll have to have self-contained communions. And we know we may not be able to hug everybody as much as we used to. Again, it just will depend on the information that comes out. And if they desire for assemblies to maintain social, distancing, then we'll have to observe those directions for the safety of our community. So we're just going to play it by ear and just see what are the professionals advising, and for the safety of our community, we want to maintain the integrity of that safety, just like we're doing right now.
Yeah. I haven't heard of any cases like this in Long Beach, but I know there's been stories about nationwide about churches getting in trouble for hosting services anyway.
Yes.
Have you heard of any resistance among leaders?
In Long Beach, and as far as the Alliance, and then we have a really new powerful organization called Long Beach Church Collectives, which was started by my brother Eric Marsh out of Parkcrest. And so the two of us have just been amazing partners in information exchange, best practices, technology. Some of our smaller churches that didn't have this level of confidence in their technology have they've been dispatching their experts to go over and help navigate them. And so it's been beautiful, but we have not heard of any churches in Long Beach who are not abiding by the directives from our mayor, from our governor, and from obviously the CDC and our health department. And everyone, although it was a little bit of discomfort originally, has now found themselves in a place where we have to care for our sheep. We're shepherds. And regardless of anything else, we have to care for our communities. And it better be community first for every shepherd that's out there. We have to lay down our lives for our sheep. And so every pastor that we know, that I know, has been in full compliance and really embracing it because they put their sheep first. They put their community first. So everyone that I know of in Long Beach has been in full compliance. I did hear about a pastor in Florida who was arrested because, sometimes, we can tell people, hey, your faith's going to keep you. Listen, not just this sickness, but cancer, AIDS, high blood pressure, sickle cell, all of those things are relevant in the church community. So, our faith is not going to keep us away from illness or injury. There are times when we will get sick as well. I will catch a cold as well. And so, but this particular situation, we do want to be more mindful and more responsible based on the information that we're receiving.
And I think this changed, even like if I have a cold or something, it's like we just come to work anyway. Yeah. And I think it's sort of changed that mindset that it's not about you.
Right.
It's about the vulnerable people around you.
Exactly. Yes. And that, I think, is the fulcrum that this all balances on, even with social distancing. Yeah. It's for the people that are around us. Right. We have to be mindful. There's times when I'll go to our grocery store and I see tons of people with masks on. And there's times I'll see very few people with masks on. People are in different places of this diagnosis or the potential risk attached to this diagnosis. And so we have to honor that. And we have to respect people where they are.
Let's see, we have another question here. With Easter this week, what word of encouragement do you have for those of us to honor and hold this day in high regard as we cannot gather together?
Wow, great question. Thank you so much. Once again, because the church is never about a building or a monument, that although we cannot gather, we cannot be disconnected. And so I want to encourage you that whatever your ministry is designing for this weekend, and I've heard of some amazing, unique, really innovative, out of the box designs. I'm actually quite excited about some of the designs that I'm hearing as a result of this new norm. So I would encourage that person to just stay close to the directive and the presentation of your particular ministry as they pursue the remainder of the Passion Week and leading up into week of Resurrection Sunday or Easter Sunday. And I think many churches have awesome surprises and really unique presentations that they're looking for, because this is our week, Christians.
Right.
What Christian, this is, if there's no other week in the year, this week is ours. And even though God has hit the reset button on humanity, He's still going to do something amazing. This reminds me of the first century church. Remember, they met in houses. After the crucifixion and after the resurrection, they met in people's homes. So this kind of reminds me of the first century church.
And Easter, Easter really is about this sort of dark period leading up to this
Well stated.
awakening. So,
Well stated.
I mean, are you going to fit that in to give us a little preview of your?
Well, you know what? You just gave me some insight that actually, let me take this. Let me make a little note here. Thank you. Matter of fact, you may have to join us on Resurrection Sunday or Easter Sunday. But you're absolutely right. It came out of a really dark time. It was birthed out of this darkness. It was birthed out of this kind of community, like unbelievable moment in history. So I'm actually really excited about what's going to be birthed from this particular moment in history, which so deeply prophetically reflects AD 33. AD 33 was the year that changed the entire world. I think 2020 will also be recognized as that in 2050. Our grandchildren will be saying, how did you get through it? And how did you guys survive it? Because this definitely is, we're standing in the seams of history. Really, never, I think, at any other time where we've been right now.
Yeah, it seems like that message could have a lot of resonance right now.
I'm going to give you credit when I first speak it, but after that, I deeply prayed, and it came from this power on high.
Okay, our publisher has a question, David Summers.
Hey.
He wants to know, what are the Bible verses you're turning to for comfort or resolve right now? Any biblical stories or people helping you these days?
Yes, I have to tell you, there's a couple for us that we at The Rock teach that we want all of the data that comes from every qualified professional. Then we apply our spiritual authority, and that should give us discernment. And there's been multiple scriptures that we've leaned on during this time. One has been Psalms 91, where it says, don't worry about the pestilence, the fear and the terror and all of that. Psalms 23 has been amazing for us. But then we had to balance that with a scripture from Isaiah 26, where it clearly tells people, go home, my people, and lock your doors, hide yourselves for a little while until the Lord's anger has passed. So quarantine is in the Bible as well. And then there's also passages that talk about, like in Numbers 16:48, it talks about during this time of when there was a pestilence or a plague of sweeping the land, that Moses and Aaron fell down and prayed. And Moses tells Aaron to grab the incense burner and begin to just burn incense. But what I liked about that is in the 48th verse, it says, during the time of a massive plague, Moses and Aaron prayed. But Aaron's assignment was to stand between the dead and the living. So it reminds us as shepherds, it reminds us as pastors, as nurses, as doctors, as first responders, as police officers, that our call is to always stand between the dead and the living. And it's not always the physically dead, but there are people who are emotionally and socially dying right now. So our job is to stand between the dead and the living during this really, really critical time. So thank you for that question. But yes, I have tons of scriptures that we really believe are the platform for our transformation during this time.
And we're actually going to have a therapist on Friday, just because
Nice.
there's so many mental health aspects to this as well. Just the sadness and the depression and all these processes that we're all going through together. When have we ever gone through this sort of thing together all at once?
And I love that you mentioned a therapist coming on, because one of the triages that we really believe is relative is that present grief always invites past grief to join. And so all of these things that we're grieving right now, we're mourning right now, we're lamenting. I think lament is the best word biblically, is that, for everything that in the past, it's now here in the present as well, because, we deal in the past and present mourning together. So my heart grieves for those who have had some mental issues, we have people who have lost their loved ones over the last couple of weeks, and they can't even bury them. They can't lay them to rest right now. That adds an extreme amount of grief and mental trauma on families. And so, trauma is real, especially uninvited trauma. It's always paralyzing at times like this.
And obviously churches are a big part of funerals and weddings and baptisms.
We have weddings on the calendar for 2020 that we've had to reassign their dates. We have 3 families right now who have lost loved ones, and now their homegoings are pending and on a hold right now. And they're navigating these difficult decisions on, what do I do next? How long can I leave my loved one, kind of in this status, this place of, there's no closure. And so it's really difficult. And that adds to people's mental stress right now.
We have another question. How are churches helping their larger communities?
One of the dynamics that we have seen in our community is that during the time where stores were out of milk, we have resources within our churches who had an abundance of milk through their various platforms. And so we have several churches right now who have like Wednesdays, particularly Temple Baptist on 10th and just east of Redondo has an abundance of resources. And the only thing they ask is that it's just you bring your staff, because you have to go from truck to truck. They don't have staff to do it, but they want you to bring 2 or 3 people, and you can grab as much as they have available, milk and food and necessities. And so the church still, as always, has been a resource. And for us, we have found that some of our members have needed financial assistance because their jobs have been reduced to part-time, or they've been terminated and have to now apply for unemployment. And so we have had to accommodate a couple of light bills and some basic food necessities and things like that, which is why the church has to maintain our durable stance. It's because people need us, our communities need us, and not just within our churches, but also outside our churches. So if anybody wants that information on like the Wednesday Project and other projects, Melissa, you just have them email you and you just reach out to me.
Okay. And you know what? We'll do a little write-up after this is finished. We'll share the video, and we'll maybe include a link to your webpage.
Okay. Or email is best, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to include my email, I have no problem. We have a really cool team that can respond.
One of the heartening things is I think it's always interesting to notice which stories that we post do the best in terms of engagement and traffic and that sort of thing. And one of the areas where I always know a story is going to do well is something with like a how to help headline. People really want to help.
Absolutely. And that shows the heart of humanity. Is even in our darkest hour, will someone still be a light to someone else? We cannot neglect the most at risk. We cannot, neglect our homeless. We cannot neglect the population who doesn't have anyone or anything right now, because that's how God is looking for us to respond. He wants us to respond accurately to the needs of humanity. And I think that's what defines the true church. That's part of our mission statement and our identity that we cannot lose at this time.
Yeah. We are getting a lot of questions, which is great.
How many questions?
How do you handle the social stigma that is attached to members or pastors contracting COVID-19? Does this impact the faith of the congregation?
How do we, one more time, the beginning of it? I'm so sorry.
How do you handle the social stigma that is attached to members or pastors contracting COVID-19?
Yeah.
Does this impact the faith of the congregation?
Well, what it does is it helps us to, once again, have like a personal identity and a personal connection. There have been pastors nationally who have been impacted or affected by this virus, just like there's been coaches and basketball players and athletes. You would expect it is going, the Bible has said something really cool. It said it's going to rain on the just as well as the unjust. So again, we don't have a golden umbrella. We're not bulletproof because we're faith-based, because we're pastors or because we're parishioners. And so, no, it has not created a stigma. What it has done is like, oh no, we're rallying with this person. There's no way we're letting this thing, let them become a statistic. We're like wrapping our arms around them even more, both electronically and personally as best we can. It's driven us to a new form of love for each other, just like anything else. Any other illness or sickness can also affect us. This one can affect us, and it has, but it has not created a stigma or any greater isolate. We blow their phones up. I have to tell you, we have people that are going, no, I got enough. I have too much now. Everybody's calling me, so we're embracing them even more. So no stigma, no isolation. They're not lepers. We're not treating them like lepers where you can't come. It's just, we love on people more in times of crisis, especially when it's our family. The Bible says to everybody, but especially those that are of the household of faith. And so our family, we have to be on top of. We cannot let their lights go out. They're never going to be without milk or food or toilet paper. Never. That's the church's assignment and our identity.
That sometimes I'm almost afraid to ask for help because you don't want to be overwhelmed by this fire hose of help. But on the other hand, it's heartening though to see people care. They really do.
Yeah. It is. It's a mindset and a culture that we either embrace, we design, or we dissolve. And so our job is, how do we dissolve this culture of fear? Our conversation is obviously faith over fear and a power over panic. That's kind of our tones. And we've had to pivot. We've really had to shift what we do without compromising how we embrace each other. And for us, it's critical that out of this, that God sees a community that says, that's what I expected from you when it's all said and done. At the end of the day, we want God to look down on the community and go, that's how I expected you to respond. That's what I expected you to do. And I think that has to be the heart of all of us. Okay, God, that's what, I want God to give us like a high five and go, yes, that's what I expected from you. And I think that's the heart of our community, church-wide. And I'm seeing a lot of that.
Yeah. That half hour went by really fast.
No.
Any closing thoughts or words for people out there watching?
Well, if I were to close with words of encouragement, I would simply say, we're going to be all right. Everybody, we're going to be all right. This is going to pass. How long? We don't know. But as long as we build it right while we're in it, when we come out of it, it's going to be amazing. So I want everyone to be encouraged that whether it lasts a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, who knows, but we're going to be all right as humanity. We're going to be fine. Keep loving on each other, keep encouraging each other, and keep connecting with each other.
Thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed
Thank you.
Conversation with you. So on Thursday, we have Jane Close Connolly coming to chat with us.
Yeah. That's my girl.
Yeah. And we're actually teaming up with the Daily 49er on that, the newspaper out there. So, and then Friday, we have a therapist coming to talk about some of the mental health aspects of what we're dealing with right now. But we thank you for watching and tune in next time. Thank
We'll
you.
be connected. Thank you so much. Love you guys.
Thank you.
Everybody stay safe, stay home, use wisdom.
Thank you.